too much.
That's scary.
Yeah, I don't think this, I don't think.
You got it. Yep.
Cause like if I'm here, I guess it's fine. You know what?
Or if they want to stand to the side, we can
Oh, that's true. That's
kind of just like lean on this. We can point this.
all right. Well, we'll just make it that one. That's something I should get is like. No. Or. It's gonna be broken. That's adjustable. Or something, you don't see that, if that's feedback, or is it just me? I'm already get on it. I'm not gonna. But I just noticed that a couple of people here thinking, okay, but I'm done, so I'm short. And, see. Yeah. Yeah. I'll make it direct.
All right. Good. You? Okay. Do we need a bottle of water or anything? Okay.
We're ready to go.
You got it.
Yeah. Try to remember the kind of September when life was slow and oh so mellow. Try to remember the kind of September when grass was green and grain was yellow. Try to remember the kind of September when you were a tender and callow fellow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow. Try to remember when life was so tender that no one wept except the willow. Try to remember when life was so tender that dreams were kept beside your pillow. Try to remember when life was so tender that love was an ember about to billow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow. Deep in December, it's nice to remember, although you know the snow will follow. Deep in December, it's nice to remember without a hurt. The heart is hollow. Deep in December, it's nice to remember the fire of September that made us mellow. Deep in December, our hearts should remember and follow.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today to remember, to celebrate the life of Rita Levy and to mourn her loss. So I was just saying to the family, when we say goodbye to someone who has lived such a full and blessed life, there is so much to cherish, to appreciate, and yet it doesn't make her loss any easier, because to have loved is to feel the true loss of her presence in this world as a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, a sister, a daughter, a friend, and a therapist, all the things that she was altogether and holistically. Thank you for being here to join us as we remember her life. I'm Rabbi Sarah Schulman from the Hebrew Educational Alliance, honored to be here today with the Levy, Stein, etc. family, and with Eitan Cantor, our music director. We're going to do some psalms, some prayers, share memories of Rita and her life before we escort the family to Mount Nebo to bring Rita to her final resting place besides her beloved husband, Erwin. We now continue with Psalm 23.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני אלוהי לא אחסר, בהנות שירביצני, על מי מנוחות, על מי מנוחות, ינעלני. נפשי ישובב, ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק. ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא אירא, רק אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמו. תערוך לפניי, לפניי, שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי לא אחסר.
Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green meadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. I begin with these sacred words from the book of Deuteronomy and our liturgy because they are the same words that Rita used to sing her children to sleep with, helping them have a sense of sleep, a sense of sleep and peace at the end of a long day. And because they're the same words that Paul sang to his mother on Friday night, helping her to have a sense of peace at the end of a long and beautiful life. And because they are the words of Rita's tradition and the Jewish people, the closest thing we have to a declaration of faith in Judaism, of oneness, of connection, of faith, and even when things are tough and uncertain. But perhaps even more so than any other reason, I begin with these words about listening, Shema, as the most fundamental ingredient of love, which is, of course, the very next word in the Torah after this line of Shema. What does it say? V'ahavta, and you shall love. I begin this way because Rita was a master listener, someone who had a gift even long before she was a therapist for enabling others to feel heard and seen, loved and supported. With her soulful eyes, her memorable smile, and her big open heart, she was there for so many, always noticing. Indeed, Rita Levy was a woman of true loving kindness who, despite a challenging upbringing, made deep and lasting connections in this world as a mother, sister, grandmother, great-grandmother, counselor, daughter-in-law, niece, and friend. Rita was born on March 26, 1934, to parents Esther and Arthur Braverman in Philadelphia. She was the oldest of two children. In many ways, she became like a second mother to her little brother, Ivan, when her own mother struggled to raise him on her own. Rita and Ivan changed homes and schools many times throughout their bumpy childhood, but Rita nevertheless found happiness in singing, roller skating, hopscotch, and yes, stuffed animals, which she would her whole life. Maybe not the roller skating, but definitely the stuffed animals. After graduating from high school in Philadelphia, Rita moved with her mom to Denver, where she would meet the love of her life, Erwin Levy, through a fateful game of cards, or maybe it was mahjong. You see, Esther was playing with Erwin's parents that day and brought Rita along to watch. Erwin's father, Ben, got one look at Rita, and that was enough to know that this truly remarkable young woman was the one for his son. You should call her right away, he instructed his son, adding, "She's built like a brick house." Though it did take Erwin a minute to come around to his father's advice, when he did finally call Rita, the two became connected at the hip from their first dance at the 6 and 40 Club. Rita once reflected, "From the first time that I met Irv, I felt loved and cherished for the first time in my life. His smile and his conversation won me over." Erwin spent every day with Rita before having to go back to serve in the Navy in Seattle. He missed her and was able to take a leave of absence to go visit her. Eventually, the two lovebirds were married on October 7th, 1956, at the naval base in Seattle. Rita and Erwin welcomed two children into the world. Gail was born in Seattle, and then Paul 4.5 years later in Denver, after Erwin finished his service and went off to medical school at CU in psychiatry. Rita was a loving, present, and supportive mother who attended all her kids' sporting events, cooked their meals, and kindly hosted their friends. Paul and Gail shared with me that they learned from their mom how to really listen to others, as well as patience, empathy, and honesty. Rita's gift for listening in the most warm and unpretentious manner led her to go back at age 40 to school at CU Denver to earn her degree and become a therapist. Rita was delighted to be studying and then practicing something she absolutely adored. She served clients and ran several grief groups, even later in her life at Brookdale and other places, connecting people in times of mourning and challenge. Although quiet by nature, Rita always had several close friends and was active with Erwin in their Havurah group and at Temple Sinai, where Gail and Paul attended religious school and holidays. Gail also enjoyed watching classic old movies, reading voraciously, writing poetry, coloring, stretching, spending time with the family's beloved dogs and stuffed animals, and taking trips up to Estes Park together. But nothing brought Rita more joy than being a grandmother and great-grandmother. Just last week, she cherished getting to hug little Rowan, her newest great-grandchild. She enjoyed making creative scavenger hunts in her apartment, taking you all out to the movies, tiny town, and for picnics in the mountains over the years. Rita was also very welcoming to her sons and daughters-in-law, making a special place in her heart for you, Patricia and Joel, as her own father-in-law, Ben, had once done for her. Rita and Erwin were always generous with their family, supporting their children and grandchildren throughout their lives, as well as the Jewish community. It was hard for Rita when she lost her beloved Irv just a few years ago after supporting one another through the ups and downs of health, over 60 years of marriage, and the beauty of growing together with time. And now, fast forwarding to this moment, Rita took her final breath in this world after being surrounded by loved ones these last few weeks especially. You've been there for her, just as she was for you, patient, kind, and present. May we all learn from Rita's legacy how to show up for others and that listening is perhaps the most profound pathway to love and to leading a life of humility, meaning, and connection. May Rita Levy's memory, compassion, and righteousness be for a source of enduring blessing to her family and to all who loved her. May she now truly rest in peace. As she once reflected in a collection of her stories and poems on the final page, death becomes a part of our conversation, openly acknowledging that we have no regrets and are ready and prepared to let go of this beautiful life whenever that time comes. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. May God bring comfort to all who mourn, and let us say, Amen. It's now my honor to welcome up her daughter, Gail, to share some words and memories of her own.
This morning was the first morning that I needed my mom and she wasn't here. Joel is not here this morning because he's sick. And that's killing him because he would love to be here. And I would have called my mom and I would have said, Mom, Joel's sick. And she would have said, oh, Gail, I'm so sorry. And she just had this empathy that I could always count on. But she wasn't there for me to call this morning. My mom's life was not an easy one. She, as the rabbi said, she had a difficult childhood, growing up with a mother who struggled with mental illness and a father who left them when she was just 16. But what defined her was not what happened to her, but what she chose to do with her life afterwards. She spent years in therapy, doing the hard work of understanding herself and growing. She faced her struggles head on, and she became stronger as the years went by. One of the proudest moments of her life was, as the rabbi said, when she graduated college. That was something she never thought she'd be able to do, something that she thought was not in her realm of possibility. But when I started college, I think my dad encouraged her to do the same, and she did. And those were one of her happiest years ever. She was so proud to go to college. And as a therapist, that was absolutely what she loved to do. And she was good at it. She was always good at listening to people. And she loved working with schizophrenics. And she would tell me the story of one particularly very sick young man who didn't talk to anyone, didn't say much at all. But one day he was walking through, I don't know, the lobby or something, and he pointed to my mother and he said, she's a good one. And that just touched my mom. Yeah. Mom loved words. She wrote poetry. I'm not going to say she was a really great poet, but she wrote. She liked to share her feelings. And she wrote all the time. She wrote about how she felt about the world, and that was how she processed. We later compiled her writings into a book, and she called the book Patchwork, which was symbolizing how her life was. It was just kind of a patchwork of different things. She was not a game lover. She really did not like games, except for one game, and that was Password. And Password is a game that's built entirely around clues and language. and she loved that game. When my father was alive, he was not a man of patience, and he would get irritated because when she would take her time to process and to think, but she loved the game. And later in life, my husband and I would go over on Sundays and have dinner with her and play password. That was up until about last 6 months. We played password, and her brain was so sharp, and she loved that game. Her processing still was slow, and I'm very much like my father. I don't have the patience either, so I would bring my knitting, and while they were processing, I would knit, and it was just great. Mom and I liked to bend the rules in password, which was also something my dad hated. If we cheated, he really got upset, but he was gone. And so we cheated. Oh, and the last thing I remember, she had some word and her clue was cheap, cheap, cheap. And we had no clue what she was talking about, but all of us started laughing hysterically. It was very cute and it was very fun. I'm not really reading what I wrote so much, but yeah, her love of words stayed with her whole life. She used to occupy herself with, in the last part of her life, with games, word games on her iPad, and then she would make up these. She called it Word Warriors. It was a club that she went to for a time, but she would make up a phrase and then find as many words as she could from that phrase, and then she would count them up and score herself with a red pen. She loved to do that. And the scavenger hunts that she made for her grandkids, she would hide like 20 or more things, write them all down on a piece of paper. And she's 90, 91. And then she would hide them around her apartment, and she would remember where every single object was. And I can't imagine how long that took her to make, but I think she did 3 of those. And even now in her apartment, there is a scavenger hunt waiting that the kids didn't have a chance to do. I'm going to miss my mom. I'm going to miss the way she laughed and the way we laughed together. I'm going to miss being able to call her and hear her empathetic words and the way she listened and cared about every single thing I did. You know, I'm practicing for my B'nai Mitzvah, and she would say, do it for me, you know, so I would practice for her, and she would listen. She always gave feedback, told us things whether we wanted to hear it or not. Even in the last couple of days, I was laying next to her in bed, and she felt my hair and she said, "Why is your hair crunchy?" You know, most people go through life and they say nice things. They say they're fine. They move on. They ask how you are and you say fine, and they move on. Not my mom. She always asked follow-up questions. She'd always stare at whoever was talking to her, like right through their soul, into their eyes. And she really heard you. I just got an email from a cousin of mine, Sherry Eden from Cleveland. We haven't seen Sherry for over 50 years. And she wrote on Facebook, she wrote, "I have such fond memories of your mom. She really saw me as a person. And that sums up my mom. She had a very particularly strong relationship with her younger brother, Ivan. The affection between them was unbelievably strong. She had strong relationships with all of her grandkids and her grandchildren, great grandchildren. And my parents shared a remarkable love story. After 60 years of marriage, they stood under the chuppah once again to renew their vows. And my father would tell people, she is the love of my life. So that's the legacy she leaves with us. Mom listened, she cared, she showed up. And the best way to honor her is to try to live the same way she did, to give people the gift of time, the gift of attention, the gift of truly listening and seeing them. Mom, thank you for your laughter, your honesty, and for loving me so deeply. I will carry you with me in the way that I listen, in the way that I love, and in the way that I truly try to see people. May your soul be at peace. May your memory continue to guide me. And may I honor you by living with the same care, honesty, and love that you gave so freely. I will love and miss you always. You will be forever in my heart.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gail, so much. We now welcome up her son, Paul, to share some words and memories of his own.
Put on the black glasses to match my yarmulke. I'm always into color coordination. I did write something because that's about the only way I'm gonna truly get through this. But for everyone that showed up, I really want to thank you for showing up. It means a lot. Sue Sawyer actually reminded me of something the other day, and that's that my mother had a nickname that most of you don't know, and she was called Rio, which she loved to hear. And she actually had a license plate for a while that said Rio, but that was just a memory that I had let go, but it was important to hear. And Sue and I talked about colors and how it was really important to me. I'm not wearing dark clothes. I'm wearing bright clothes because we're celebrating. That's what today's all about. So we're not saying goodbye to a life cut short, but instead celebrating a story that was told in full. Mom had her own way about her, strong when she needed to be, steady in ways that didn't always get noticed, but she was always there. You could rely on her. That was my mom. Growing up, you don't always see everything that your parents are doing for you. It's only later that you start to really understand the quiet things, the sacrifices, the consistency, the way they held things together, the way she wrapped everything in aluminum foil. That was my mom. She didn't need attention for it. She just did what needed to be done, always with fresh towels, fresh chiclets in the same drawer, always with the classic reminders about clean underwear, and always with shower and shampoo. That was my mom. As I got older, I appreciated her more for exactly that, the stability that she gave us, for the way she cared, even when she didn't say much. The eyes said it all. She didn't need recognition or accolades. That's who she was. I got my sense of smell and hearing from her, apparently. Her hearing was so acute that we could never get away with even whispers from a different room. Honestly, she can probably hear what we're saying right now. That was my mom. She always had meals available, always welcoming when friends came over, and never ever questioned my choice of relationships, even though many were very questionable. Current company absolutely excluded. That was my mom. I miss her already, as I'm sure many will. I always will, but I know that what she gave me doesn't go away. It shows up in how I live my life, how I treat and respect people, and how to properly hold a woman when dancing. From her book that we've talked about, Patchwork, slightly modified for third-person accuracy, woven within the fabric of her stories are bits and pieces of her life, a journey of self-discovery. It was a process of finding herself, believing in herself, and loving herself. She couldn't have said it better herself. True story. As I sat by her bed on the last day and tried to give her some water, she tried to communicate. She was whispering and couldn't say a lot. All that she said, and clearly, I might add, at the end of the frustration was, forgive me, fuck it. She used to say it took 20 years of psychotherapy to say things like that, and she became proficient. To conclude, I read somewhere that, and I quote, "A life that spans nearly a century is not a book that's ended, but a library that will always remain open in the hearts of those who knew her."
Thank you, Paul. We now welcome up Rita's granddaughter, Sarah, who also had a very special relationship with her grandma, to share a few words.
What I have to say is not too much different. That's just a testament to her character and how she showed up for everybody in the same loving way. But I too will have to stick to my script because I don't know if I'll be able to make it through. Today, I want to talk about my grandmother, Rita Sunshine Levy, my Mima. Mima and I had a bond that was unlike any other relationship in my life. She had this incredible warmth about her, the kind that made people feel immediately safe and important. No matter who you were, when Mima talked to you, you felt seen. You felt like you mattered deeply to her. One of the greatest examples of love in my life was the marriage between my grandparents. The way my grandfather adored her, the way they looked at each other, the way their love filled a room without either of them needing to say much. It was something special. You could feel it just being around them. Mima had an extraordinary way of holding on to moments. She could retell stories years later without forgetting a single detail. She remembered people's words, their feelings, the tiny things that most of us let pass by. And yet, some moments she kept quietly to herself because she understood that not every story belonged to her to share. That was part of who she was: thoughtful, loyal, and deeply respectful of people's hearts. She showed love in 1,000 small ways. A dollar bill slipped into your hand for a treat at the movies, matching pajamas, an extra bottle of cream to take home. She somehow always knew what you needed before you even knew yourself, and she made sure you had it. But Mima was not only gentle, she was strong. She taught me to love deeply and to put people's hearts at the center of everything. She also taught me to speak up for myself and ask for what I need. She had absolutely no problem ordering her food exactly how she liked it. She would lovingly tell someone if she disagreed with their outfit or even their hairstyle. And she definitely was not afraid to correct Grandpa if his words became a little too harsh. Those things made her who she was: loving, honest, funny, and completely herself. There are so many things I will miss. I'll miss the way she always gave me the front passenger seat in the car, the way she called me Sarah dear, the incredibly detailed scavenger hunts she made for my boys. I'll miss watching her file her nails and floss her teeth right in the middle of a conversation, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I'll miss her beautiful cursive handwriting, the small notes she always wrote me, and the way she always seemed to be thinking ahead to dessert. But more than anything, I will miss the way she loved me. She loved me unconditionally. She believed in me in ways that no one else ever has. She understood me before I understood myself sometimes. And there was something about the way she looked at me that made me feel completely safe, completely valued, and completely loved. I know how lucky I am to have been loved by her. And while losing her leaves an ache that words cannot fully describe, I also know that so much of who I am exists because of her. The way I love, the way that I care for people, the way I try to notice what others need, those gifts Mima gave me. I will carry her with me always. And I hope she knew every single day just how deeply she was loved in return.
This next song that I'm going to sing, Smile, I'll be singing from the sheet music. And often sheet music has a little marking at the beginning that says maybe how fast to sing it or the mood. It might say something like brightly or a march. And this one says moderately with great warmth. And after hearing these stories of Rita's consistent empathy, showing up, warmth, feels like the right tempo marking for this moment. Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness, although a tear may be ever so near. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.
I invite you to now rise as you're able to, for the El Malay Rachamim Memorial Prayer.
El Malay Rachamim Shochen Bamromim המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת רבקה בת אסתר שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהי נשמת מנוחתה הנם בעל הרחמים אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים ותרור בצור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר אמן.
El Malay Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest and your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Rita Levy, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. This time, we welcome up Jim Cohen from Feldman's to share some information about what's going to happen to get to Mount Nebo. I also want to announce that there will be Shiva tonight and tomorrow night at Gail and Joel's home. That'll be from 4 to 8 tonight and 5 to 8 tomorrow evening with Minyan both nights at 6 p.m. Thank you again for joining us with your sacred presence today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do have an escorted procession today to Mount Nebo Memorial Park. So if you'd like to join us for interment and in our procession, we'll ask you to return to your cars as quickly as possible and have your hazards on. That will help the escorts identify you as a participant in our procession. We're going to pull out of the parking lot and get immediately to that east lane that's heading south. Please, if I may ask for a little bit of patience, we're down to one lane up at Colfax, so they often get backed up right in front of our parking lot. So the escorts it might take a minute or two to get us onto York Street. If you're not going to the cemetery, if you'll give way to those who are, and the biggest request is if we can please ask you to refrain from coming forward and trying to speak with the family, it will delay their process in getting to the cemetery. Thank you very much for your attendance. And those who are asked to be pallbearers, if you can just hang out in those back doors, we'll be with you in just a minute.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו.